Hello, hello. Welcome to the Enquiry podcast. This is a show that helps you to influence your reality to the greatest capacity in order to be able to use your life as the medicine that it is, to be able to know how to read the signposts and follow the breadcrumbs in order to express the fullness of who you are and what you're actually here for. I'm your host, Nerida Mills. I am a master psychosomatic practitioner, coach and facilitator, and it is my absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome on board and let's get started. Hello and welcome back to Enquiry. It's my absolute pleasure to be here and to have this conversation with you. Ceremony is something that I really love exploring. I've been consciously moving myself into ceremonial spaces since my early 20s. Some of the ways that ceremony or that I've participated in ceremony being facilitated have been things like meditation, or long bouts of meditation, things like kirtan, experiences like ecstatic dance, certainly breath work, psychosomatic therapies, hugely ceremonial, and also moving into, plant-based experiences as well. So looking at cacao ceremonies, psilocybin mushroom ceremonies, things like Wachuma or San Pedro, ayahuasca, peyote, even marijuana, using all of these tools as pathways to be able to really activate a higher level of consciousness or a deeper connection to accessing the subconscious through different ways of doing that in those ceremonial spaces. And so, it's been an area that I've played a lot in and I feel quite familiar with. And I've also facilitated quite a lot of ceremonies myself. So, if we look at life is ceremony or living life as ceremony, it's really interesting. So this really started to come through for me a good couple of years ago now after a particular sitting for myself where I sat with my own my own stuff and explored my own growth through a ceremonial space. And one of the things that really made me giggle is, what is the difference between these ceremonial spaces and life? So if we look at what is encouraged in a ceremonial space that may be potentially discouraged or avoided in everyday life or everyday living. So the first thing that is going to happen within every ceremony is that we are invited to really think about our intention before we move into the space. So before we actually take any form of action, before we explore in any way, we're invited to look at what is my intention? What do I actually want to get out of this? What is the point of outcome? So that's the first step. The next step is that, generally speaking, some form of acknowledgement of the universal energies at play is made. So whether that's to a guru, whether that's to, the directions, north, south, east, west, and all the different archetypes that work within that, whether that is to the person who is being worked on's higher self, whatever it is, there is some form of acknowledgement that there are other energies at play influencing the situation and, really showing gratitude and acknowledgement for those energies at play. The next thing that's really going to happen is that within the ceremony itself, you're invited to lean into any discomfort or activation that may happen or transpire through the ceremonial experience. So we're encouraged to notice within ourselves where our mind goes, what we're thinking about, what we're feeling about. If anybody else's behavior activates us or anybody else's sounds activate us in any certain way, we're encouraged to really feel into or allow the fullness of our feelings, of our emotions that may come up through the ceremony. The other thing that we are also encouraged to do is to trust the process of our own expression. So whilst there are some ceremonies, for example, with ayahuasca, you really are encouraged to stay in your own space because it's quite an introverted experience. Whatever happens in the ceremony happens in the ceremony, and there's purpose for that. And so at no point are you discouraged from the truth of the expression in the moment. In fact, to the opposite, you're encouraged to honor the truth of your expression in the moment and allow for the medicine that expression brings, not only for yourself, but for the other people present in the ceremonial space. So, for example, maybe through a psychosomatic, Adam and I do group work. So, we do these group events, and when I'm working on one person, they may have a moment where they express through laughter, and it's really natural and normal to have a laughing expression through psychosomatics because we're activating the pain body. But most people associate that with, more like tears or yelling. And so when somebody's laughing, it could activate somebody else to be like, oh, how dare they? How dare they be having fun whilst I'm in my pain and suffering, but there's medicine in that, right? For both people. Can you experience joy while other people are suffering? Big question. And also, can I, what is it about somebody else's joy that is frustrating me? Is there jealousy there? Is there frustration because I haven't yet to tapped into that? Am I annoyed because other people always seem to get ahead and I don't? There's always going to be medicine in those reflection points. And so we're encouraged to lean into those and use them as a pathway to our own medicine from the experience. And then the final thing that happens is that generally speaking, that you're really encouraged to, often not always, but often there's a place of opportunity to be seen or to be heard in your experience as well, and a non-judgmental space to be able to actually, reflect on what you've noticed within yourself, what has come up for you, and also, we kind of close out that chapter and let it go. So leaving whatever came up into the ceremony behind. There's not this need to hold on to now what I realize that I've been doing. It's more of an encouragement of, now that you know that, what are you going to integrate into your life from that? And so, they're the common threads that kind of move through a ceremonial space. And if you look at, how we do life, you'll see that for most people, those elements are not present. And, where there is, obviously with certain religions and things, there's that honouring. In Australia, I think that's one of the pieces that is not present for a lot of people, is that ritualistic kind of honouring of that which is that which we are part of. Call that whatever you want, in whatever form you choose to relate it to. But that's kind of an element that is missing somewhat. Certainly in our intention, most of us go about our day without even thinking about what is the outcome from my day. We don't look at what is the outcome from what I'm doing. We get lost in the short-term satisfaction and immediate kind of moments of pleasure, rather than really being very intentional behind what we're actually doing. And certainly our society does not encourage that reflection point. If anything, it's more of the blame game, right? You've activated me, therefore you're a bad person, rather than looking at what's in it for me and where is there medicine in the situation for me. And finally, within that space of closing out and being heard, to be heard in a non-judgmental space. Like, I'm very, very selective with the people who I share my reflection points with in my personal life when I'm going through an activation, simply because there's not a lot of people who can hold that non-judgmental space, who've done the work on themselves that is required to be able to do that. So there's some of the things that I think, are kind of the shift between living life in ceremony and not. And saying all of that, right? Life is medicine. And if you choose to utilize your life as the medicine that it has the capacity to be, and that it's really desperately trying to get you to see, then bringing ceremony into how you do that is an inevitable step. Because in order to utilize life as medicine, we're looking for those activation points, right? We're choosing to, as I was talking about last episode, we're choosing to allow myself to be fully seen, allow the medicine for myself and others based on the truth of my expression in the moment. So it's an inevitable part of the process of utilizing life as medicine. And the more you lean into that, the more you feel guided, because it's just so apparent that there is something else going on that I'm not even going to try and fathom to understand or to pretend to know what that actually is. I don't think any of us really do. We can all kind of hypothesize around it and, get really philosophical, which is always fun. Like, it's good to have a good old mind wank, but it's, we don't actually know. So, there is definitely something else at play that put the right people in your pathway at the right time to either activate you or to guide you, which is the same thing essentially, right? So it does bring all of a sudden this natural inclination of honouring something. And again, choose your preference around how you want to do that. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way of doing that. I think it's literally comes back to that intention when we're honouring outside of ourselves. I truly believe that the daily tasks that we go through on an everyday can very easily be translated to ritualistic behaviour simply by shifting how we're looking at it, by shifting our intention around it. I remember very clearly being told that I wasn't a spiritual being because I wasn't meditating twice a day, doing yoga for an hour and a half every day, and I can't remember what else this lady was doing, while I had two very young children. And I had just moved out of a space of doing all of that, to be honest. And I kind of laughed because I was just like, first of all, what is not a spiritual being? Let's just cover that question out. There is nothing that is not spiritual. If everything is energy vibrating at a certain frequency that gives it the physical density that is matter, and then we are all one. There's no escaping from being a spiritual being. You can be a spiritual being by doing, the things that we classify as the most least spiritual in the world. You're still a spiritual being, and everybody's on their own journey within that. The question is the quality of your experience in that. For me. So what brings the quality of the experience of that connection is the ceremonial element. And really, again, that's driven more based on, if we look at how it's set up, intention is number one. That's really all it takes. I'm intending to have a ceremony right now. Therefore, I am having a ceremony right now. If I intend to have a ceremony while I open the blinds in the morning, then that's a ceremonial experience. And the beautiful thing is it gives me a greater level of connection. It gives me a greater level of openness to the awareness of those signposts and breadcrumbs that are going on in my life and the guidance that is taking place on a daily basis. I'm more inclined to not take personally those signposts, but to utilize them for the growth and opportunity that they actually present. So living life as ceremony or in ceremony really is a inevitable piece of living life as medicine. So I encourage you to explore within your own life where you can bring some of these elements in. And if you don't know where to start with intention. That's really the first place of literally going, I choose that my day is a ceremony. I'm going to live my day in ceremony, and just notice what you're more or less inclined to do. Notice what you're more or less inclined to notice, and enjoy the process of the experience of connection. Because you're always connected anyway. It's not like if you're not aware of it, you're not connected. That's not the case. You're always connected. You're always part of whatever this beautiful, chaotic, perfect kind of unfolding is. We're always part of that. There's no disconnecting from that. But when we bring our awareness into it, our experience of it is of a much greater quality. So that's what we're really looking for, is how do we upgrade those qualities of experience. Cool. All right. I hope you're all having a beautiful day, and I'll speak to you soon. So that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I would like to really acknowledge you for spending the time to explore what creates your reality and how you can influence it best.
If you have absolutely loved this episode and the ones before it, then I highly encourage that you jump onto my newsletter list. You'll be able to find the details of that in the show notes. You can also follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Nerida Mills. Really, really, really looking forward to speaking with you again soon. If you have any comments, insights, feedback, anything that you would like to share from these episodes, please feel free to email me at info@neridamills.com. Until next time.